into a potato head if he eats too many.
I know, I do all the time. And Jackson has a neat story. He was born on leap year. So at the beginning, I nicknamed him Skip. So Skip
All right.
Jackson. So anyway, we do have a great guest today. I've known him for some time. Uh, he has a huge resume, and I'm just going to tell everybody right now the most important thing about Greg Befort's resume is that he's a member of the CSPOA.
By the way, hold on. Let's be clear. This is by his choice, though. We don't beg former police officers or sheriffs or anybody else to be members. The CSPOA is for the people. He joined as a person, right, Sheriff?
Yeah, he did. And what I really like about that is that person of his has a lot of experience in law enforcement. In fact, he became a law enforcement trainer and established training curriculum for the state of California. So maybe we can blame him for all that California crap. No. So anyway,
well, if we had his training, it wouldn't be the same, Sheriff.
No, that's absolutely correct. Anyway, Greg was raised in Nebraska and then joined the Air Force and then moved to California and he joined the Yuba City Police Department in Northern California. And Greg, I'm going to have you, first of all, Greg, good morning and thanks for being on the show. And I'm going to have Greg. Greg, I'm going to have you give the rest of your resume. Tell us the amazing experience that you've had as a trainer in police academies and establishing training for Nevada and California. And the last part of your resume I found really interesting, and that is this, that you established training according to natural law. Wow. Where did you ever come up with such an idea?
Well, well, as you know, and knowing the Constitution the way you do, the principles of natural law are what the Constitution was based on. And when I talk about natural law, I'm not talking about man's law. I'm talking about the laws of nature and of the universe. Call it God, whatever term you're comfortable with. Those laws are immutable, which means they can't be changed. They're not subject to the whims of politicians. They don't change from time to time. Slavery used to be legal. Here, for example, wasn't moral, but it was legal.
Shame on that, by the way.
Shame, yeah. Okay.
Natural law basically is the objective, the laws of the universe and objective morality. And there is such a thing as objective morality. And that's what we teach. That, and there is such a thing as objective truth. People need to know that and seek the truth. We're about truth and morality we teach. And unfortunately, those are the first few casualties of tyranny. And that's what we're experiencing.
Now, you've been pretty outspoken about some things. You appeared, it's on, I believe it's on YouTube. I know it's on the internet. I don't know if YouTube has banned you because your powerful words to the lake. You live in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, which is northwest part of the state, really close to the Nevada border. But so you spent time in Reno, you spent time in Northern California, Yuba City, and now you live in Lake Havasu, and you're part of the Havasu Patriots, again, and the CSPOA. But your presentation, you had a 3-minute speech that I think is one of the most powerful 3-minute speeches that a city council could ever hear. You appeared before the city council and you weren't very user friendly. You were not very friendly at all. You told the truth and you told them you were going to tell the truth. And people can look this up. If you Google Greg Befort, that's Befort. And am I saying your name right? Befort?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. and over all the months that we've known each other, I thought that's the way it was pronounced, but it's an unusual name, so I want to make sure. But be that as it may, you appeared before the Lake Havasu City Council, and you let them really have it. I really liked your comment at the very beginning when you said, "Is there anybody here that still believes that this is about health?" The all that's going on with the response by governments regarding COVID-19, you asked, is there anybody that still really believes that this is about health? What were you meaning about that?
Well, we've been deceived. We've been lied to. Again, it goes back to the truth. The truth has been obfuscated. The media has done a tremendous job of obfuscating the truth, and they've been complicit in this, what I call the mass psychosis of humanity. We're not; these issues don't just affect Lake Havasu City. You see this tyranny all across the world now, in countries like Australia and New Zealand and in the UK. Canada. What were considered to be Canada, Western democracies, and their governments. This is being a former law enforcement officer. You look at this, and there's no question in my mind that there's a conspiracy. People, foo-foo with that all they want to, but they've done a tremendous job on the psyche of humanity. They keep people in a state intentionally, and when people are in that state, as you know, when they're in crisis, they can't think for themselves, and they're very easily manipulated. And so they have captured the emotions of people with fear 24/7. If you want to hypnotize people, the two elements that you need are attention and repetition. And if they can get you to focus on the fear of death, have an innate fear, they capitalize on the innate fears of people. And they've done a tremendous job.
We're having just a little bit of a technical problem with you. You're breaking up just a little bit. What were the two things you said you need to be hypnotized?
The two elements that you need are attention and repetition.
Attention and repetition.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well,
and if you look at it in the context of COVID-19, many of us recognized early on that we were lied to. We've been lied to. The inconsistency.
Well, you actually told that to the city council, that they are perpetrating the lie that has been going on. In fact, you flat out accused them of being part of the great lie.
Yes. That video that you're referring to was 1 year. Was 1 year to the date I've been in front of them and told them you're being lied to, and laid out exactly how they were being lied to and how they were complicit in the lie. Both the city manager and the mayor, particularly, but their attorney as well. They're paid, call them liars. Unfortunately, the police department got involved and were actually complicit as well by going to businesses and not shutting them down, but warning people under the color of authority that the governor had passed an edict declaring that gyms and other businesses were non-essential. That's when I got involved.
And Sheriff Mack, I love the term that he's using here, the color of authority. Pretend legislation, Sheriff.
Right. Yeah, in a lot of our presentations, Michael Peruka, a constitutional lawyer from Maryland, does a presentation for us about pretended legislation. And not only that, that term actually comes from the Declaration of Independence, when Jefferson is detailing the 27 reasons and the abuses of King George III British Parliament abuses, when he details those as the reasons for which we were separating from Britain, he lists in one of those pretended legislation. And I love that term because it applies to so many things going on today. And as a matter of fact, they don't even pretend that it's legislation, but they still expect us to bow down and obey and follow all this crap. And it doesn't even qualify for pretend legislation, because pretended legislation would be at least passed by the parliament. But as we know, Jefferson also said that, quote, laws or legislation just become tools of the tyrants. And I, for one, believe that that's all this COVID-19 has been. All the regulations, all the rules, all of the pretended legislation, which none of it has been legislated by any lawmaking body in this country, especially the federal government, which they have no authority to do in the first place. Taking care of everyone's health is not the responsibility of the president or of the United States Congress. That's not their job. It's not in their purview.
And if you look at the Declaration of Independence, Sheriff, they derive their just power from the consent of the governed. We've never given consent for these kind of dictatorial edicts.
Well, the 10th Amendment says even if they want to self-appoint themselves power, they can't. It belongs to the states or to the people, and they would have to ask permission from the states or from the people to do that, and that's never been granted. And and so anyway, I really want to.
And on our watch, never will be, right?
No, well, I hope not. Yeah, I pray not. As you said earlier, Sam, we all need to pray and make sure that we're on the right path with our stance against tyranny. But one thing I want you to start before we get to the bottom of the hour break, and then maybe they need to call you during that time and see if they can get a better connection with you. But you're coming across about 75%. I want you to, as if you're talking to every peace officer and sheriff in the country right now, in view of what's going on in our country, what would be your message to every peace officer, sheriff in this country?
Well, I guess one of the messages would be, you have an obligation and you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Every single one of you did. Whether you're retired or not, and this is something that I am involved in now as well, as trying to get some of these retired officers and military people to get off the sideline. Just because you're retired now and you have yours, when you understand what's at stake here, you need to get off the couch. Quit being a morning quarterback, board warrior, and get off the couch and get involved and start fighting for what you know is right. Uphold moral law. You know whether or not a law is moral or not. You don't need anybody to tell you whether or not what you're doing is a violation of moral law or natural law. So listen to your gut and don't be an order follower. And that's one of the biggest problems we have. Not just with
I got to stop you right there, Greg. An order follower. I just have to enforce the law. Well, the cops that say that drive me crazy. Which law? What law do you enforce? And as you alluded to, they swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. They must enforce the supreme law of the land above all else. Liberty is first, even for cops. Liberty is first for every facet of our government, all three branches, and that's what every cop should be defending, is the liberty.
Especially for cops.
Especially for cops, yes.
Yeah. Well, in military.
Hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Befort, our guest. You are watching the Sheriff Mack Show right here on Pride.tv.
Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Hodesy. The Dr. Hotze Report airs every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time on Brighteon.tv. I'll take you behind the scenes so you can know what's really going on. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you want to prevent yourself from getting an infectious disease, then it seems wise for you to develop a strong, healthy immune system. Wouldn't you agree? I've developed an immune pack with my recommended dosages of vitamins A, B, C, D, zinc, magnesium, and probiotics to support your immune system and to keep you healthy and energized. I've also formulated a teens pack and a kids pack.
Order your Dr. Hotze Immune Pack today at physicianspreferencevitamins.com or call 281-646-1659. Use the code BTV at checkout for a 10% concession.
This is an amazing company that has sponsored both of us, and this is a way to have backup communications when the grid goes down.
Well, the situation became problematic, Mike, with the New Orleans, the latest hurricane, because people panic. And this is one thing that I've learned from being associated with the satellite phone store for over a decade. People will call and order 600 phones at a time.
What?
It's like this, Mike. Anytime there is a crisis, people want these. And ladies and gentlemen, they've created such a good deal for Mike's viewers, my viewers, our combined viewers, that this is the only way you're going to be able to communicate.
And that's the other beauty about these phones, is they can't track you because it's not talking to a cell tower. It's talking to satellites, orbiting over the equator. So SAT123.com, folks.
The Sheriff Mack Show, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff Mack, Sam Bushman. I'm the operations manager for the CSPOA. The two of us co-hosting the broadcast, as always, on your favorite TV station. That's Brighteon.tv. Our host, Sheriff Mack, myself, and Greg Befort with us, ladies and gentlemen. And Greg is a former police officer doing a great job involved in natural law training, incredible education about God's laws, about natural law, about a higher source than government's law, if you will. And Greg gave an incredible speech to a city council that we thought was worthy that you should see it. Here's the video.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. For the record, my name is Greg Befort. I'm resident of Lake Havasu City. And we've gone from 14 days to flatten the curve to now mandatory vaccinations or else you'll lose your job. And this applies to employees and citizens of the city of Lake Havasu. Anybody who believes that this is about your health at this point is either naive or complicit or both. And unfortunately, this city council has chosen to, where I was here a year ago, this month in front of you, telling you the problem is you're not discerning the truth from a lie. You chose to embrace a lie and ignore the truth. You ignored the harm that you were potentially going to cause to the citizens of this community by your actions. And I'm not talking about all of you because all of you weren't on the board at the time. And you act still though, that people at Lake Havasu, they have a choice. We'll trust them to have a choice. Well, then why a mask mandate? Why send officers to businesses to shut them down? So don't tell me about how you give people a choice and you haven't been complicit in this. We still have a local emergency proclamation that is still in place, declaring that there are conditions for a local emergency proclamation that you have refused to rescind. You are holding up the false narrative, the lie, and are continuing to ignore the truth. I'm asking for leadership from this city council. And that's what I've asked for all along. You were a follower, which meant you set your consciousness up on a shelf, knowing that your actions were going to cause harm to people. And look where we are now. We were here a year ago so that we didn't get to the point where we are now. We tried to speak out, and now those people, and there's plenty of complicitness to go around, and that includes the citizens here who stood by and said nothing.
while this was happening. And now that they're affected, we have people with employees over 100. If you have an employee over 100, it's mandatory for them now. What's your position on this, City Council? We don't know. We don't know because you stayed silent. All of you have, and ignored your responsibility to protect our constitutional rights. The County Board of Supervisors stepped up. They declared a proclamation last week saying that it's unconstitutional to do what you're doing, and we don't support it. What's your position, Mayor, City Council? Are you going to stay silent? Are you going to continue to stay silent and support this narrative? Or are you going to step up and do your job? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We need that kind of attitude in every city council, every county commission meeting, every local effort we possibly can, Sheriff.
Yeah, no kidding. That was great, Greg. I've heard some, I've done a few myself, 3-minute speeches, and that's all you were allowed. But that was one of the most powerful 3-minute speeches I've ever heard. And boy, you weren't holding back. You didn't pull any punches. Did you ever get a reaction from any of them? Did it make an impact at all?
Besides a nervous chuckle?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it did, because they've since then rescinded the local emergency proclamation.
Oh.
So I believe that our group has had an impact. We were also effective at getting the mask mandate lifted. We put a lot of pressure on them. I mean, a lot of people say, well, yeah, you're pretty direct. Yes, I am direct. The truth is belligerent. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. That goes to, back to my point, with truth and morality. Those two issues, people have a tendency to want to lie to themselves, and that's one of the biggest problems. Their belief in authority, it's not about what you believe, it's about what you know, and about the government and the authority that these people actually possess. Most people are statists,
and folks,
they have a belief in an unlawful or a belief in authority that shouldn't exist.
Exactly. Well, I want to remind everybody, Greg, you were a patrol sergeant. You were also a detective. You were also a member of a SWAT team. You spent about 15 years in law enforcement. You were injured in a high-speed pursuit, which happens pretty frequently. I was lucky in a few of those. I got in a couple of wrecks, but I was not injured in mine. But those are, in fact, the law enforcement community is now frowning on just about any kind of high-speed pursuits nationwide, are they not?
Yeah, that's pretty much been the trend.
Yeah.
The fear of liability, obviously drives a lot of that.
Right.
And I understand that.
And then how long? And then you've been a law enforcement. You've been a law enforcement trainer. So how long did you do that?
Well, while I was still an officer, sergeant, I actually was teaching at the academy, and so when I retired, it was a smooth transition into the academy environment. And from there, I had done curriculum development for commission in California, and then went to Nevada and took an officer position with a federally funded law enforcement training program. Ultimately became the director of that program, and then in 2012 I ended up retiring Nevada.
Okay.
So I've been involved in training officer, and it's been my passion.
I think it's important, Sheriff, to understand that, he was a police officer. He understands natural law training. He understands personal responsibility like nobody's business. That's why he stands before the city council and demands they take responsibility. And I really think that Greg is providing this leadership idea where we all need to stand up and say, hey, we expect you to be accountable. We don't want you to keep your head down and be sidelined and advance your career. What we want you to do is keep your oath of office. What we want you to do is keep your job and do your job. What we want you to do is be accountable to we the people who elected you. And if you don't, we will find somebody who will. And our greater numbers, as we the people across the country decide to get out of our comfort zones and stand up like Greg did, is the key to the solution, Sheriff.
Yeah, it really is. And if you have it, Sam, do we have that video from KrisAnne Hall?
Yes, we do. So the video that we have, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play is on TikTok. And it got on TikTok, and I'm going to explain how really quick. So KrisAnne Hall, well-known constitutional attorney, works with the CSPOA often, speaks across the country telling the tale of liberty. She's a truth teller like nobody's business. Anyway, somebody took a clip of one of her speeches for the CSPOA and literally put it on TikTok. And it's literally got over 8,000 hearts. And I don't know if you guys know what a heart is, but it's kind of like a like. But it's a heart. Well, for every heart that you get, usually they say it's between 10 and 100 like-minded people. So, you know, if there's 8,000 plus hearts, you got almost 100,000 people that really believe in this video. Way more than that who have viewed it. It got shared about 2,000 times as well. So I bring this up because a citizen took action and got this much coverage for KrisAnne Hall's speech in defense of your county sheriff. Watch KrisAnne. This is incredible.
The sheriff is your most important ally in the securing of your rights, because your sheriff is not a hireling of the state, not a hireling of your county. Your sheriff is a constitutionally elected representative of the people. It is his duty by oath to secure your rights. It is not his duty to blindly enforce the law. If there is one office that you can take back control of to secure your rights, it's this one. Because your sheriff is the highest authority in your county. Your sheriff has an authority to deny enforcement of laws, state or federal or local, that do not secure your rights or work contrary to your rights. This is Sheriff Brad Rogers from Elkhart, Indiana. He stood up to the federal government. He got sick and tired of the federal government, the FDA and the USDA, coming in and raiding his Amish farmers in the middle of the night, trying to seize their weapons of mass destruction. You know, raw milk and cheese. He wrote a letter to the FDA and the USDA and told them that if they step foot in his county one more time without first coming to him and seeking his permission, that those agencies would have to come bail their agents out of jail because he was going to arrest them for trespassing. And since the day of that letter, they have never had another problem with the USDA or the FDA, because the federal government knows the sheriff is the highest authority in the county. That's why they're always trying to co-opt them. That's why your sheriff's departments are always being offered free toys and training and mutual jurisdiction agreements. And, ooh, we'll let you wear our badge if you let us wear yours. It's bribery, it's extortion, it's trickery for the sheriff to relinquish his authority to a lower power. Because you realize your elected representatives will do a lot of things when you're not looking, right? But they will never do what you want them to do. They will never do what you really need them to do. Not to provide you with welfare and homes and health care, but to provide you with the security, the ability to secure your own rights. They will never do that unless you expect it and you demand it. He says, some bloggers and natural food writers have hailed me as a hero. I'm no hero. I'm just doing my job. Remember, his job is not to blindly enforce.
Man.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You, Sheriff, when she says you, it means we.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and nobody tells it more powerfully than she does. I guess maybe Greg does, because they both their speeches were fantastic. Chris Ann Hall, constitutional attorney, telling it like it is, and she said the exact same thing that Greg just said. The ones that say, I'm just here to enforce the law. My job is not to pick and choose. I just enforce the law. And my question to every sheriff or peace officer that says that, do you know what the law is? And please tell me what the law is and what qualifies as a law that you would enforce. And Greg, you were in
let's make it, before you go to Greg, let's make it even more clear. And when there's a conflict in the law, in other words, a perceived conflict, where do you go for guidance? And the answer is the supreme law, Sheriff.
Yeah, well, as you know, we train that the first and foremost in that is God's law, and that you must follow God's law before man's law. And that's kind of the moral law that Greg has been mentioning. But it's also, after that, it's the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the supreme of the supreme law of the land. It's the supreme of the Constitution. If you have any question, refer to the first 10 amendments or the Bill of Rights, and then you can find out there where you go. So, Greg, really, this whole thing, you were in law enforcement long enough to know that just following orders has never been the case, that we have always had police discretion as to how we would enforce the law. And I will submit that traffic codes do not supersede the Bill of Rights, and that Chris Ann kind of alluded this, and both of you have said similar things, and that is that government's job, especially cops' job, are not to make sure that I'm wearing my seatbelt, or that I'm eating my veggies, or that I'm getting properly vaccinated. Their job is to protect my rights and enforce their oath of office. And those who just say they enforce all the laws, that's baloney. No cop has ever enforced all the laws. Because there's stupid laws still on the books in every state. And to have cops enforcing stupid laws is the essence of tyranny. But doesn't this boil down to Nuremberg and those who committed the atrocities during World War II against Jews and others, but the millions who were killed and murdered and the genocide? The people who committed those said the same thing. I'm just following orders. You can't blame me. You can't find me guilty of a crime. I'm just following orders. Isn't that where this all boils down to?
Yes. Anytime you're willing to allow somebody else to dictate to you what's right, wrong, objective morality, anytime you allow someone else to do that, you in essence put your consciousness up on a shelf, just like I talked about in that meeting. And there are consequences for that. The problem is that we're experiencing, the humanity is experiencing the consequences of our morality or lack thereof, our willingness to paycheck in many cases. Whether you're a hospital CEO or you're an officer just following orders or just obeying the law or upholding the law, doesn't matter. You're allowing somebody else to dictate to you what is right from wrong. And that's the problem, is most people have a difficult time determining what rights are, let alone know the difference between a right from a wrong. So that's a big part of what the Havasu is about, is first of all, distinguishing these things for people. What is a right from a wrong?
Right.
Well, the law basically says there's two principles, the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. The feminine is do no harm. Do no harm. And the other side, the sacred masculine, is take no crap. Either the right of self-defense.
And ladies and gentlemen, this, Greg and Sheriff Mack, this really is about the American people forgetting who's in charge. You see, we the people are the ones that need to uphold the proper role of government. It's by our consent is their power justly derived. They get their power from our consent. And we've basically, in America, been taught that they're in charge, and we must do what they say, even if it goes against our moral compass, even if it goes against our gut, even if it goes against this masculine and feminine, which is do no harm but take no crap. In the middle of that are we the people, and we must balance that as we realize they serve us. And we've got that upside down in America. It's the biggest problem.
For sure. Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to ask you. Well, one other thing I wanted to ask you, Greg, and thank you so much for being here. We're still having a little bit of a technical problem with you, but I want you to address this. You live in Mojave County. Mojave County is where Lake Havasu is. And I would like you to tell the viewers, I really don't know what you're going to say here, but give us all a grade of your sheriff of Mojave County. What would be his grade if you were his teacher and you were going to give him A, B, C, D, E, or F? What grade would you give him and why?
Well, I actually met with Sheriff Schuster, and I met with him personally, and got an opportunity to get a feel for where he would fall on that spectrum. And I would say that, and I most likely would give him a C plus at best. The reason I would say that is because Sheriff Schuster made it clear early on he was not going to allow his deputies to enforce the COVID mandates. The problem was the other side of that. Let's see, he took the flag halfway up the mountain, I guess, in terms I've used before, and planted it there. Instead of enforcing natural law or the constitutional rights of citizens and businesses, and going to the health department people and saying, if you go to try to shut down a business, I'm going to come and arrest you for doing that. So that's the reason that I would give him that grade. Look, he's made it known that that's his position. He's in a tough pickle like a lot of sheriffs are. I understand that. Politically, he still has to deal with politics, and they control his budget. These board of supervisors control his budget, and there are 10 ways a Sunday, just like the intelligence agencies, of getting back at you. So he has a tough job. I have respect for Sheriff Schuster, and I'm confident that his department, that's the message he has sent to his department, which is equally as important, not only to understand his own philosophy, but to make sure his philosophy is understood throughout his department.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a sheriff to put the flag on the top of the mountain and take on the IRS, Sheriff Mack.
Man, we've been praying for that for a long time, but one of our tenets that we teach, Greg, at some of our seminars, and we need to get you to come to some of our CSPOA training seminars maybe in Texas that we have coming up in January. We'd like you to attend that and see what you think. I know you've heard me speak a lot, and you've heard a lot of our training materials, but the all-day training seminar is something that really we maintain that if Sheriff Schuster would attend that, he would not leave the same, that his grade would go up from a C or C plus to an A minus, and maybe even an A or A plus, because the training is significant, and you have to do that. And so I would hope that we could reach out to him and all the sheriffs that are good people like Sheriff Schuster and get them to the training and have them raise the bar where they're at in defending the Constitution and protecting the God-given rights of the people that they work for. So, Greg, thank you so much for being with us. We're proud to have you a part of our organization and proud to have you on the show today.
Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Befort, our guest. CSPOA.org is where you can sign up and become a member of one of the greatest solutions-oriented organizations on the planet. CSPOA.org. Thanks for watching the Sheriff Mack Show on Brighteon.tv.